Hey there, lovely. Jules here. In the last 5 years before I finally stopped drinking, I think I probably felt the most pathetic and useless that I'd ever felt in my life. I've got an IT degree, I did decades of personal development. I had street smart, I was a single parent running a home budget that worked, and I still couldn't figure out how to stay sober. And it was just the worst feeling of knowing I wanted to and not being able to, and not being able to find the way to. And I felt sometimes like I was circling sobriety, like a kind of hyena waiting for the scraps. It's like I just couldn't find it. It was really awful. And I found myself giving myself a hard time and then drinking again, because that's what you do. And I would always go back to the relief of drinking because I just couldn't figure out how to actually stop. And if this is something that you're familiar with and you'd like a little bit of support, I've got a free guide in the description box below. It's all the 10 things I wish I'd known at that time that I'm sure will be really helpful for you. For me, it was always the same stresses that brought me back, the same triggers that brought me back. It would be Monday's stress, the difficult conversation. It would just be really stressful, and it could be anybody. It didn't matter. I would just turn every conversation into something that I had inevitably failed in and therefore felt stressed about. But I didn't have the language to call it stress. To be honest, I blamed everybody else. I was like, oh, they're useless, they're this, they're that. And I blamed everybody else. But obviously deep down, I knew it was me. And I knew that I wasn't performing at my best, behaving at my best. But once I understood that in terms of the stress, things became an awful lot easier when I quit, because I learned how to handle stress as opposed to be in stress and then drink, thinking that that was an answer. And when I started working with women, I worked with this lovely lady, Viv, who was a retired nurse, who came to me for support. And her circling of sobriety was different from mine. I would always abstain for a few weeks and then hit with a bang and go back, like, I can't stand it anymore, I'm having a drink. Whereas Viv would it would creep up for her. It would be like one and then kind of creep up, but it ultimately was the same pattern underneath. She had some frustrations and fears about her retirement and what that was supposed to be looking like, as opposed to what it was looking like. She also had a family member who was sober, I think she felt the pressure of that as well. And a lot of that turned into doom scrolling and buying the makeup to make herself look like she didn't drink, because I did exactly the same thing. And when we were talking about her retirement and how that didn't match up with her ideas of what she'd thought her retirement would be, we talked about the money side of things, and we actually calculated not just how much money she was spending on alcohol, but how much she was spending on the makeup, the snacks, the taxis, the takeaways when you would normally make your own food, It was a substantial amount of money, basically a bit of a life-changing amount of money. I think, if I remember rightly, it was something like £10,000 a year. But I say roughly because I have seen this same kind of number appear over and over again. If you add up not just the amount of alcohol that you are buying, but also the periphery stuff that goes with it, it can clock up to a substantial amount of money. And I think that was a big turning point for her, because I think she was beginning to feel that she couldn't afford a nice retirement. But when we laid it out like that together, that was a real kind of moment for her. And she started to see that her retirement could be exactly what she wanted it to be. And obviously my philosophy is most loving thing. And when you apply what's the most loving thing I can do to that situation, it is to not drink. But that's almost the side answer, because the real answer is to take a look at the life you're living and decide how you want to live, decide what life should look like for you without alcohol in it. And if funds become available because you're not wasting it anymore, then those kind of dreams and ideas about what you want life to be like suddenly become actually achievable. And that's certainly what Viv found. And when we were coming to the end of working together, she said to me, quitting drinking is easy, isn't it? The real challenge is in changing your lifestyle so alcohol has nowhere to be in it. And it's so true. If you've been circling around quitting for a long time, having spells of sobriety that might last a couple of weeks, a month, the real work is in actually changing your lifestyle so alcohol just isn't in that space anymore. And that's what I've done as well. You already know how to quit. That part isn't difficult. You just need to figure out how to build your life in the way that you deserve. And I think sometimes as midlife women, we think we don't deserve good things. We don't deserve a good life. And if you ask yourself, what's the most loving thing I can do for myself right now, then the answer will always appear, and it'll always be the right one, regardless. So I hope you found that useful. Again, there's a link in the description box below, and if you'd consider subscribing and clicking the like button, that would help other women like you find me. And hopefully I shall see you soon. Take care.